Good morning. Happy
everyone.
Monday.
Thanks for joining us on our very special weekly update. Today we have a special guest. So along with us, the Hatch Homes Group, we have Stephanie Levine from
Sierra
Pacific
Mortgage.
Mortgage.
Yay! We're so
Yay.
excited to have you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Oh, just a quick note. John is probably going to be out of these for another couple weeks, just so you know. You'll just see our faces.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a hot topic, something that we are always having to talk with buyers about, especially in this market, which is appraisal gap coverage. And, we're going to talk about some misconceptions about appraisal gap. Stephanie has for sure been an expert in this, and she's going to walk us through some real life scenarios on what it means to cover the gap or waive your appraisal altogether.
Yeah. So let's just, if I can mention like that, this is a really strong term that people are putting in their multiple offer situations when they're trying to be really competitive. And obviously when things are selling, 54% of all homes on the market right now are getting offers above asking price. And so it's kind of important to know where the appraisal value is going to fall in that, and to have a kind of a contingency in there, or the opposite of a contingencies, I guess, in this situation.
It's more protective for the seller, right? Like people are like, why do I need to waive my appraisal? That seems really risky. It's like, well, in an increasing market, the seller wants some kind of guarantee that if they go with your offer, that they're going to get that offer price. And so that's why it's just been so prevalent in today's market. So Stephanie, how about you get us going with some of these scenarios?
Help us understand it.
Well, thanks for having me here today. It's fun to talk about this topic because it's in every conversation and prepping buyers to get to the market. Because the last thing you want to do is have a buyer start making offer, and they're not getting accepted. So knowing the strategy and what this worst case scenario looks like gives buyers a guarantee, not a guarantee, there's no guarantees, but gives some peace of mind to sleep at night that if you're going to waive this contingency, what does that mean to your worst case scenario? So I put together some real life scenarios. I'm going to share my screen here with you and walk you through a couple.
And I have to say, like, just real quick, on most of my transactions where my clients have either waived the appraisal or covered some gap, most of the time the appraisal comes in at value. But there has been scenarios where they have not, and but it's not like the worst case scenario. Like I've never had a worst case scenario come up. I've had just like a little bit of a gap needs to cover.
Yeah. And I think that's what's important, having such a strong real estate agent on your team to help you understand what those comps in the market are, so that you have the worst case and a likely scenario, because you have access to the same data the appraiser has access to. You're seeing the same things in the market, and you're really good at doing that to set the stage of at least the ballpark of what to expect.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had ones where I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing the comparable sales here. Like, I think it's a high likelihood you will have to cover a gap. And that's when this is extremely important to really understand. Then there's sometimes where I'm like, I think it's going to appraise just fine. And you went 60,000 over. I still think it's going to appraise, and it did. So sorry, you keep going.
It's so true. So this first scenario that I pulled up, this is really a first-time home buyer scenario. Purchase price is $450 with a 5% down payment. And what's important to understand with this scenario, if you're a first-time home buyer, you can go down to a 3% down payment. However, if this is your second home, then you wouldn't be able to move down to the 3%. And the definition of a first-time home buyer is somebody who has been on title in the last 3 years.
Wow.
It was not been on title. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or has never owned a home. Yeah.
Correct. Just to get technical with terms. Here's the $450 purchase price. If a 5% down payment, that would be $22,500. Your estimated payment would be $2,104, and that's everything included, property taxes, mortgage insurance, and your estimated cash to close would be down here, the $30,849. So let's say you waive your appraisal contingency and the appraisal comes in at $435. So that's $15,000 less than what you offered. But the seller is still going to get all the money that you promised because you waived the appraisal gap, which means you're going to bring in the difference. So you don't need to bring in the full $15,000 cash out of pocket. You could reduce your down payment to 3%. So you see the lower down payment, and that percentage is off of a lower price. It's off the appraised value. So you can see the difference in your monthly payment is about, what is that, $8.
That I think is such a huge thing that people misunderstand a lot, is that, you know, changing the price $10,000, $15,000 is really not going to affect your monthly payment that much.
Right. And so it is, you're paying a little bit more in mortgage insurance, but you're paying less on principal and interest because everything is a percentage off of the purchase price or appraised value, whichever is the lowest. And then if you look at the cash to close, in this scenario, it would be the $21,357 plus $15,000 to make up that gap. So you're really looking at $36,000 to bring cash out of pocket. So instead of having to bring $45,000 cash out of pocket, you adjust your down payment and bring in a lower amount of cash. So you could continue on with the purchase if you had $36,000.
That makes so much sense. Thank you.
That's great.
So this is the first time home buyer scenario with the 5% to 3%. And obviously the more cash you have, the easier these scenarios play out. So in this scenario, purchase price is $351. Borrower is bringing 18% down payment. And your estimated payment is $1,876. And the total cash was $69,921. So in this scenario, the appraisal came in $11,000 below the offer price. So we lowered the down payment from 18% to 15%. And you can see the monthly payment is $5 more a month. And the cash out of pocket ended up being $68,000. So it's the $57,753 plus $11,000 to make up the gap.
So lower.
That's actually less than
So-
what the original plan was. That's cool.
Yep. So $5 more a month and less out of pocket.
That's great. It's
It's
so good
really-
to put a visual to these things, and like a good lender like you will be able to break it down for any buyer that is worried about this. Because I know I've had those conversations with my buyers, like, I don't have extra cash to do that. Well, look, you might not have to.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's scary because you think you're making up this $20,000 gap. It's like, where am I going to come up with the money? And to know that you have options to move around and it doesn't have a huge impact on your monthly payment. Because the first thing in real estate is to get your foot in the door so that you, with a monthly payment, you're comfortable paying.
Definitely.
So this is the last scenario I put together. And so this purchase price was a 10, I think it's really like a 12% down payment. If we're all familiar, there's a conventional loan limit, and anything above that loan limit is considered a jumbo mortgage. So all the lending rules and guidelines change. And typically with jumbo, you need a higher down payment. So in this scenario, it's about a 12% down payment, but we're capping the loan amount at this $548,250.
Because that's
So
the
anything
max you can get. That's
Yeah,
kind of conventional.
on a conventional loan, that's the max you can get on a loan. So in this scenario, and at this price point, it's really fun. And I say it's fun because it's less risk, because your cash out of pocket is gonna stay about the same no matter what you do, because anything above this loan limit is all cash from the buyer anyways.
Yeah.
And so whether it's a 10%, 12%, 8%, 5%, It's all additional cash. And so in this scenario, purchase price $625, loan amount $548,250, the monthly payments $2,977, and total cash out of pocket is $88,359. So in this scenario, we kept the loan amount the same and just lowered the down payment a little bit. So 63 plus 25, what is that? 88.
88. It's the same.
It's
like
the exact
exactly the
same.
That's cool.
So
That's so good to like just see how you can kind of play with the numbers and shift it around. You know, that's important in any kind of budgeting anyhow, but I think when it comes to getting your mind around it, this is great. Thank you.
I think like the visual is so important. Like I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but until you actually see numbers in black and white, and if you having this knowledge to write it in your offer, and the seller is going to see that as a competitive advantage, like at this point, you have nothing to lose if you don't write it.
Yeah, like we recently were in a transaction where the listing agent didn't understand this. Like, you know, like they didn't understand how we were going to waive the appraisal. And Stephanie, you actually talked them through it. And like they were like, wow, that was so helpful. And the offer was accepted. So it's great. Such good information. What are scenarios, like what are people that aren't really good candidates to waive their appraisal or cover any gap?
I think when you're at the 3% down payment, it gets challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have the cash to cover above and beyond the 3%, you don't have all the flexibility because you don't have anywhere to drop your down payment.
Plus closing costs. Remember, you have to calculate the closing costs in. But of course,
Right.
When you meet with your realtor with us, we walk you through those, like what all the numbers are and what they mean and what you have to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be the hardest.
Anybody else? Like anybody else not a good candidate?
I guess it would be a home buyer that's buying their second home with a 5% down payment because they wouldn't be in a position to drop it to 3%. 3% conventional low down payment is only available to first-time home buyers.
And FHA?
There's some wiggle room. Not with the, again, if you have 5% down, you could drop it to 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be for a first-time home buyer or a second-time buyer.
Okay, that's good to know. And VA, as we know, like if you have some cash, there's some flexibility there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, VA programs have a lot of flexibility, but with VA, if you're doing 0% down, then you don't have any cash to make up the gap.
Right.
However, if you're doing VA and you have like 4 or 5% down, now you have some cash and you can lower your down payment to 0 down payment and use the cash to make up the gap.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's such good information.
It helped me understand even, so I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
And for some of my clients watching, I'll totally send this video to them.
I think, yeah, it's just numbers are powerful, and like we all want to feel safe and secure with our finances. And the last thing we want to do is write an offer and then lose sleep overnight thinking we can't afford it.
Yeah. That's what I've noticed is actually, if I have a client that's in a really competitive price point and I'm like, hey, we're going to have to talk about waiving your appraisal up front. It's so nice to work through these numbers, just get a general idea before you even write an offer. So it's not like at the deadline, I'm telling you, hey, you got to waive appraisal on this one. And by the way, like, does that freak you out? Because it probably does if you haven't run through the numbers. So, So powerful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
You're so welcome. This was so great.
Good. If you guys have any questions about multiple offer situations, waiving your appraisal, all that good stuff, we are here to help you. Have a really great week.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Have a good week.